Hi, thanks for joining us on our podcast today. I am Mike Glenn, the president of the Engaged Church Network, and we are focused in helping pastors of local churches and leadership of local churches understand the changing dynamics of Middle Tennessee. And nobody could help us better understand that than Rogers Anderson. Roger has been the county mayor for Williamson County for over 20 years, having served on the county council and various roles in that, and then was elected mayor just, 22 years ago now or something like that?
Correct.
But as we were talking before we started recording, the Williamson County that he came into is very, very different than the Williamson County that you work in now. So one of the things I want to talk to Roger about is how we recognize those changes and then how we respond to those changes in our roles as leaders. So tell me about the Williamson County, because when I came here in 1991, people would talk about having to drive all the way into Nashville. You know, well, Mike, we don't want to do that. You have to drive all the way into Nashville or all the way down to Franklin. And now those are just, you make those commutes without any thought at all.
Well, there's no question. First of all, thanks for letting me have a few minutes of your time to talk about some of the changes. But no question about it, one of the fastest growing counties, percentage-wise on population, I should say, has been Williamson County over the last 20 years. I think there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that traffic. And part of that goes back to those men and women back in the late 80s and early 90s that were leading these cities. We have 6 cities and 1 county saying, we can do more. Not necessarily we can do better, but we can do more. And one of those definitions of more was quality of life, a safer community, a transit community, transit being able to get around. But we can do better in public education. Nothing wrong with private schools. As you know, I have grandchildren in both public and private. But we built our reputation around public education. Good outcomes, way before things were measured. When you and I were in high school, if you got out, you went on. You were just that individual that did that. But today, we literally track those students to see how they're doing elementary, middle, high school. Where do they go? What do they do? What kind of scholarships are available for them? So that was the culture for so many years. And to that, it led into corporations looking to move to this county.
Right.
Because of that model that had been implemented. You look back in the days you came here, there probably wasn't a mall.
No, the mall that was built, but it was empty.
Yes. It was a field of strawberries and corn, and it's unbelievable. Yeah. And there was a lot of tension in those days.
Well, a lot of our friends used to hunt that land.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. A lot. I don't know if people even understand, but I grew up, frog gigging was a way of life. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of that went on over there in those little ponds.
Right, yeah.
So a lot of that has changed over the years, but it's been based around the quality of education. And you look at today's parents that move in, well over 55% of the population has a BS degree or better.
Wow.
And so today's model, our parents, our citizens, our taxpayers, they want the best quality education they can get. Now, that can come through the public side or it can come through the private side, depending on your school of thought in that area. But changes will come when people come from other parts, not only the continental United States, but throughout the world. Their values, how they feel about certain things, how they perceive government, whether they like government or not, how they perceive this whole concept. But it's also, Mike, as you're well aware of, we still have a certain percentage of our population, they're struggling.
Right.
They're struggling just to meet the daily needs that they have to have.
And sometimes in a place like Williamson County, you can assume that everybody's doing fine.
That is correct.
And they're not. There is that subculture there underneath that has those kind of struggles.
Certain organizations, there are lots of 501c3s that could use daily help. I think of the many places that you can go and just meet your daily need of food, whether it's Grace Works or Gen 1 or any of these multiple churches that have pantries for their citizens and people around that individual church to go and just take food off. Certainly here in the last couple of weeks, we're all very familiar with what has happened with the calamity of the floods and the bad weather up in the upper East Tennessee. We were just earlier today packaging up food to be sure we're able to be involved at the local level in that next community, because they're really our neighbors.
Sure.
They may be 3 hours away, but they're our neighbors.
Yeah.
So that fiber has been woven throughout Williamson County. And I think it's important to realize when I was a boy growing up, you had the school and the church, or maybe the church and the school, depending on how you want to phrase that.
That's the same way I grew up, yeah.
And our community is still strong, faith-based, more of them, but they're all in our county and they're all in our cities.
So when you start and you begin to notice the changes, what were some of the first changes you noticed?
In my early days was seeing that we had quality public education with good outcomes. And the county commission during those early infinite years not only helped fund the capital cost, bricks and mortar, but they also helped fund the cost of the operation, improving the quality of what comes through there with children, the quality of teachers, addressing the things that needed to be addressed. Not necessarily the concept, if it was good enough for me, it's good enough for my children.
Right.
There has to be an improvement that all of us go through.
Brentwood High School was built since I was here. Since I came in 91, so Brentwood High School was just coming online. Before then, everybody went down to Franklin. But now Brentwood High School has been, I don't say torn down, but all of that Brentwood Middle School and high school has been revamped. You got the Performing Arts Center, you got the STEM building, all of that. And how did the county decide to Brentwood was a fine school, a fine high school, but you've added significant upgrades in particular areas.
Well, let's go back to the basics. When I got here in about 1980, we had about 35,000 people. Probably when you got here in about 1990, we might have had 40 to 45,000. Today, we have 265,000. So,
and they're all trying to turn left on Franklin Road, right?
Well, if they're not turning left on Franklin Road, they're turning right on Concord Road. But at the end of the day, I would not embarrass you on your own podcast, but we have 53 public schools in Williamson County. Up until 2 years ago, we were building or opening a new school every 18 months.
Wow.
Now, a new high school is around 90 to 95 million. A middle school is around 60, elementary school 40 to 50. In the days you got here, most of the band members, sports members, boosters, whatever you want to call them, they help build those schools.
Yes.
Today, that's part of that dollar that we put in, whether it's those auditoriums, performing arts buildings, sports complexes and things like that. That's part of the total education that is being challenged. In Brentwood, because there's no more land that would accommodate, the decision was made a couple of years ago, let's build around it. Very similar to the old Franklin High School. They wanted to leave it there, so you build around it, tear down, put in. Takes a little longer, but there was no land available in Brentwood to do that. Or take Brentwood High School, middle school, and transport it off the center area.
Right.
And the community didn't want that.
No.
But every high school in Williamson County has been addressed. If you've not been out to Page High School, it's
Know
a
it well.
small college.
Yes. Yeah.
It's probably larger than where you went to Alabama. I went to Tennessee.
Right.
But that school was bigger than a lot of my areas in my day. So every high school has been addressed, and we have a true feeder system, being an elementary school, a middle school that feeds into that high school.
Right.
Now, zoning still occurs at the elementary and the middle school. So that's kind of the history as people move here, trying to build those schools, stay ahead of the curve a little bit. And graduation rates today, 96 percentile and plus.
Outstanding.
We've tried to address all of the needs, but it all boils down to dollars and cents.
Yeah. When did you realize that you were dealing with a different animal than when you started?
What kind of animal?
Well, just okay. This is what happens in a local church. You come to be the pastor of the church, and then that church changes, and then you get to be. I tell people I pastored 4 or 5 churches at the same address. You have led 2 or 3 counties at the same address. Yeah. So what were some of those indicators to know that now you needed a different leadership emphasis or a different leadership style?
I would think, as all leaders, we have to be sensitive to the fact that change is going to occur. I don't necessarily agree just to change for the sake of changing, but change for the better, change for the good. And that probably has really occurred over the last 10 or 15 years, that with the influx of people coming in, as we discussed, new ideas, new concepts, new ways to deliver things, and new views. They're moving from a place that maybe they didn't like what was going on, and they saw here, we talk about the grass is always greener on the other side, but in the reality of it is, you and I are getting older, and there is this next generation that's going to fill that void after we're gone. They're going to need to step in, and so their leadership is important. Now, I think it's important to remember we all need to try to be peacemakers when we can. We all need to lead with the what we know how, the history of why, but be willing to be receptive to other areas. Now, that's difficult sometimes as you get a little older.
Right.
That someone's challenging the way that you have done something. But at the fact of the matter, that's part of the evolution of a developing community and encouraging these men and women, these businesses that move here. You are welcome, but not everything needs to change. But we understand there's going to be change coming.
Right.
And so I would say 10 or 15 years ago, that I can honestly say that there was some pushback on different ways we did things. Not that we were doing it wrong or illegal, because the comptroller comes in every year and checks off whether you're doing it right or wrong.
Yeah.
But it's the style, it's the vehicle. What was the first car you ever had?
1969 Volkswagen, a Beetle.
Did it have electric windows?
No.
Did it have FM, AM radio?
No.
Would you buy that vehicle today other than storage?
Other than sentimental reasons, no.
And why is that? Notice I'm interviewing the interviewer.
I like my sounds, man.
That's right.
I gotta have,
And all those changes when the seatbelt first came out, I said, "This is not easy."
Yeah.
Today you can't go anywhere.
You can't go anywhere with it. Well, one of the things that that both you and I have seen is the change in the digital world.
Absolutely.
And how much of your work now you do, and how much communication you do with citizens and all of that. The newsletters I get and all that from the county, the library, and all of that, keeping me posted and informed. So that's not natural to you and me. That's not our world that we grew up with. That our children have certainly done that.
Well, all of those things that you're discussing are part of the culture in which we live today. But the basic denominator is, in my opinion, you have to love your community.
Mm-hmm.
It goes without saying. Your faith is so strong and paramount. It's the backbone.
Mm-hmm.
It's the cornerstone of all individuals. I believe that with all my heart, because in those difficult times, you need to rely on someone other than Mike Glenn or Roger Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that communication is harder now because people don't.
Yeah, and despite all of our stuff, it's harder, isn't it?
Yes, it is. People don't want to really hear about good public policy.
Mm-hmm.
They want to hear about what's really good for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of that, I think of some people that need food and clothing and shelter and those types of things that our area churches need to be providing. Our congregations need to be looking. It's great to go overseas,
Mm-hmm.
but we've got a lot of needs right here in Williamson County.
Yeah, great, good. Now you mentioned something I want to spend a little time on. Obviously, we're taping this during the election season, and so everybody talks about the polarization of the country. There are some who would say, Rogers, that Christians do not need to be involved at all in the political process. Now, I've known you a long time, and I have known you always to be a man who's very sincere about your faith, very consistent in your faith, and a man of great integrity. And so, what would you say about Christians being involved in the political sphere?
I think they need to be involved. I think the key word there is we have to remember the word civility.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know how to, if your candidate is one and I'm the other, that we can still have that conversation. But let's keep it civil. Let's talk about issues where we can. I think it's okay to disagree. I think you have to figure out that when Tennessee and Alabama play, we're probably on different sides of the stadium. And until just recently, I didn't want to talk to you about sports, but at the last 2 or 3 years, I have wanted to talk to you.
I'm a little harder to find.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like that I think I really believe that Christians should be, but understand just because you're a Christian, you're not going to get everyone's to buy into that.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity means one thing to you and a little bit different to you and me. But at the end of the day, it's our faith. It's who we're worshiping. It's our God. We're following Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
We're following Jesus to the best we can. And I have made it a practice. It's hard, and I made mistakes, and I've a couple times had to ask. I messed that up, but I really do believe love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and love your neighbors likewise. Now, that's not always easy.
No.
That is not always easy.
Yeah, that's my prayer. But Lord, do you know my neighbor? So.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So.
But at the end of the day, whether you're, I don't know that I'm 100% right on this, but at the end of the day, I think there's going to be a lot of people in heaven that, how'd they get here?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm probably one that's going to surprise some people, right? How did he get here? So,
but to your listeners and in your community, you know your congregation, your flock best, or you should.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And let us know where we can help in the government side. There are certain things I can. There are certain things we can't do by law.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a need in your community, then let us know. We have outlets. We have outlets other than government that can help so many people.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I'm glad you took the time to be with us today. Did you listen to him? Roger has been a successful leader of Williamson County for over 20 years. A couple of things he mentioned I want to emphasize to you. One, you have to love your community. You can't love a church. You can't love a community. You can't lead a church, lead a community unless you love them. He does. Change is part of it. And sometimes that change is difficult, but it's always an opportunity to do something better and deeper and richer. I love the thing he talked about of we decided in Williamson County to focus on education, and they did that really, really well. And then that became the center that all the growth came around. So in your church, in your community, find that one thing that you do uniquely well and build around that. This is Rogers Anderson. I'm very glad he took the time. Thank you for being here today. I'm Mike Glenn, and this is the Engaged Church Network. Thanks for being with us.